Alright, so here they are, the Google Pixel 3 and the Samsung Galaxy S10e. So to go ahead and start off this comparison, we're just going to be looking at the external hardware of the two devices really briefly to see how similar and both how different they are. So we go ahead and lift both of these devices here. You can see that they're very, very similar in dimensions. When it comes to height, the Google Pixel 3 is just a tad taller, and if I were able to get these things even here, you can see that the Galaxy S10e is just a slight bit wider. Now, looking at the back of the devices, you have your standard fingerprint sensor here on the back of the Google Pixel, whereas the Samsung does not have that on the back and has it on the side. Frosted glass here on the Google Pixel and your standard Samsung super oily, smudgy glass that Samsung has been using for quite some time. As far as camera setups, we're going to be taking a look at the cameras briefly in this comparison, but you have your standard 12.2 megapixel shooter here, and that being the only sensor on the back aside from the flicker sensor and your flash. On the Galaxy S10e, you've got your standard 12 megapixel camera and your 16 megapixel wide angle shooter as well. You also have your flash, your phase detect autofocus and laser autofocus to the right of the flash here on the back of the device. Now, if we turn them over to the right-hand side of the devices, you can see the button arrangements. So Google goes for its standard all buttons on one side, combined volume rocker and power button, and Samsung has the combination fingerprint sensor and power button up here located really high in the device. Now, if you hold the two side by side, you can see it's only marginally taller than it is on the Google Pixel, or marginally higher, but it is significant when you're holding the device in your hand. And flip it over to the other side. Google has no keys down here on this side, and Samsung has the volume rocker and the much hated Bixby key over here. On the top of the phones, we have the SIM tray that duplicates as an SD card, microphone, and microphone on the Google Pixel. Of course, the Google Pixel does not have a micro SD card expansion slot. The SIM tray is actually on the bottom of the Google Pixel down here, and on the Samsung Galaxy, we have the speaker, microphone, USB-C port, and the headphone jack, which is missing on the Google Pixel. And to make things even worse for the Google Pixel that we'll discuss here in a few moments, the Google Pixel actually requires you to have a headphone adapter with a DAC built into it because they're not passing any analog audio out, which is a massive disappointment and major inconvenience. On the face of the devices, we have got your camera punch out here with a 5.8-inch 19:9 aspect ratio 1080p OLED display here. And over here on the Google Pixel, we have our dual camera setup here, front-firing speakers, and a 5.5-inch 18:9 aspect ratio display. So even though the Google Pixel has a stumpier resolution or a stumpier ratio display and a smaller display in general, the Galaxy has a smaller footprint, at least in height. And again, that's simply due to the fact that they went edge-to-edge on this device, but that does come with some caveats, which we're going to be discussing. So that's a quick overview of the hardware here. Let's go ahead and start taking a look at the software. So in terms of software, I have this Google Pixel 3 running Android Q, the second beta on the first patch, and this is running One UI on Android P. So they both have always-on display modes. Now, Google has a very plain always-on display mode, but I find it significantly better than the one found on the Galaxy S10e because you have your weather shortcut here. You've also got the ability, so if you have music playing, it shows up down here in the bottom, and if you have any pending notifications or reminders that would normally be in your what was Google Now bar, those appear down here on the bottom as well. Whereas on the Samsung, you've got your always-on display with the clock, the battery percentage, and the calendar, and any notifications that you've got here as well. The battery icon has been moved to the top right corner on Android Q, as opposed to that bottom center location. But they both have always-on display, and as we just saw, you can see that they both have tap to wake as well. So we're going to quickly test that out. So let's go ahead and just tap these two devices. And you can see that the Google Pixel is a little bit more responsive in when it responds to the double tap to wake. The same thing applies for the raise to wake as well. So I'll wait for these two phones to go back into their sleep modes. And you can see again the Google Pixel was just slightly faster and also has a much nicer animation going to that. And I love the animation when you turn the display off too. It kind of dims down, where Samsung just fades out the whole display. Just a neat little quirk. So like I mentioned there, you've got that full resolution display here, as opposed to the front-firing speakers that make way. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, what that means as far as your applications, what you can see, what you can't see, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and unlock these two devices. And so I'm going to go ahead and head this off at the pass. This is my home screen. This is the way that I like it. You can keep leaving comments, but it's not something that I'm going to change. Unless I'm reviewing a home screen or a phone that I need to review the home screen, this is the one that I like to use because I can transfer it between all my devices, iOS and Android, and everything more or less is exactly where I know it's going to be. I don't have to search or scroll through. I really hate app drawers. But again, that's personal preference. So you can really see how much more of the phone is used up by the display on the Galaxy in comparison to the Google Pixel. You really feel like you're using a next generation display with the Galaxy, and that's really what it sells itself on. But that's not to say this doesn't come without a few hindrances as well. Now, it looks pretty decent on this wallpaper. You really don't even see the camera, but say we go to something white, like the settings menu, and you can definitely see that cutout impeding in the display there. The same thing with whenever you're using an application. I use Flamingo for Twitter, and you can see that camera is just staring you in the face the entire time. This is something that you're in two camps. You either get used to it or you don't get used to it. For me, I really can never get used to it. And part of the reason, I'll see if my camera will focus here, you can actually see that the camera is not centered in the status bar. And for someone who's a little bit OCD and likes things in their respective places and to have equal borders and such, that really bothers me. There's more space on the top than the bottom. And then, of course, your icons are shifted over to the left on the Samsung Galaxy, whereas you don't get that experience here on the Google Pixel. As far as how much display can you actually see more, and you can see that you're not getting a whole lot more content, like I mentioned. So the status bar, I keep on calling it status bar, but the navigation bar starts at the Huawei line there, and the status bar starts just below the Huawei line here. You're really just not getting a whole lot more content, which is a disappointment considering some of the things that you're giving up here, that massive cutout there. And that's because the status bar has to be so huge to handle that camera in the bar. And that's just one of the things that really bothers me about the Galaxy. It's a lot of compromises that you're making for not a huge amount of savings. Again, you can see here, you're just not getting a whole lot more content. If we switch over to Reddit, I'm going to go ahead and refresh the all for both of them. And again, the situation is almost the exact same here. Both of the fonts are pretty much identical, and you're getting about a line or so more content here. If we go into these comments here, hopefully they load the same comments. You can see that the comments, you're just not getting a whole lot more content on the Galaxy S10, even though it's a taller aspect ratio display, which means you should be getting more on these portrait style applications, but you're also getting a bigger screen, a taller screen, but you're just not getting that content, and that is due to that status bar. I'm sorry if I'm rambling here, but I really want to just get a lot of my thoughts out between these two devices because, they are very similar, and I think if you're in the market for one, you should be in the market for the other. I definitely will give you my conclusion here at the end of the video and what I recommend for each individual, but these phones are much closer than you might expect. So just really quickly, we're going to go through some specifications here. On the Galaxy S10e, you've got your Qualcomm Snapdragon 855, and you've got an 845 here over on the Google Pixel 3. Now, the 855 is one of the larger jumps that we've seen Qualcomm make in performance, and that does reflect in the benchmarks that we'll have in our full S10 review. You've also got 6 gigabytes of RAM, on the S10e with an available 8 gigabytes if you go for the larger spec model. You're stuck with 4 gigabytes here on the Google Pixel. 64 gigabytes of internal storage default on the Pixel. 128 gigabytes of storage default on the Samsung Galaxy. You've got that expandable SD card slot here on the Galaxy as well. So as far as storage and RAM and performance, the Google Pixel really gets outclassed by the Galaxy S10. And again, that's on paper, but it's really how does that translate to all over performance? So despite I have issues with One UI as far as the way that it works and the way that it functions, performance on the Galaxy S10e is stellar. I can't even give a high mark to the Google Pixel 3 because of some of the issues users have been having with massive stuttering, buffering, camera problems, and so on and so forth, and One UI has just gotten that much better that there really isn't a huge delta between these two devices, at least not what you had in the past. So when it comes to just raw performance, despite the fact that they're running different processors, I think that One UI has closed that gap. Now, it's still not as buttery smooth as you get on a Google Pixel. It feels more responsive, no doubt due to their faster touch response that you've got on the Google Pixel, but the difference for most people isn't going to be there anymore. And if the Galaxy S9 series is anything to go on, we're not going to see those massive performance hits that the Galaxy S8 series had after just a short period of time. The Galaxy S9s are still kicking and still in great shape. So Google has got something to worry about because they really hang their hat just on system performance. So some other differences between these two. The displays we talked about. We know a lot of the differences, but you have an HDR certified display here on the Google Pixel 3. You've got an HDR 10 Plus certified display here on the Samsung Galaxy. You have an incredibly bright screen here on the Samsung Galaxy, and you've got probably one of the dimmest displays on any flagship you can purchase here on the Google Pixel 3. I think as far as display goes, hands down, the Galaxy S10 is better. That's not to say there, again, aren't a few caveats with the Galaxy S10. There's some nitpicks I have with it. In the US, the default setting for the display is natural. But in natural, you're not actually getting your peak brightness. You have to set it to vivid, and the phone won't automatically switch over modes. That's a disappointment that most people in the US will probably never change that setting and never get the peak brightness. And it is a noticeable decrease from something like the Galaxy Note 9. Some other things as well on the Samsung Galaxy. I have noticed some significant ghosting on this particular panel. Now, again, this is a 1080p panel, so I don't think it's quite up to the same specifications that we see on the higher end Galaxy S10s. We have some display testing that shows that. Erica Griffin on Twitter and YouTube has also shown some of that, where the smaller S10es are shifting purple when you lower down the brightness. So that is a massive disappointment on the Galaxy S10. I was really hoping they'd have a equal tier display on the Samsung, but it looks like that they just kind of skimped out just a little bit and compared to the big brothers that you have with the S10 and the S10 Plus. But again, these little nitpicks that you've got here on the S10, these are things that the Google Pixel doesn't even come close to. So when it comes to displays, if you can deal with the camera cutout, the Galaxy S10 is hands down the better device when it comes to what it looks like. Now, when it comes to software, what it's like to use, I've complained a lot about One UI, and that's because I have a lot of issues with One UI. I don't like the way that it looks. I don't like the way that it works. I like some of the fundamental things that they put in here. For instance, having a lot of things on the bottom of the display. I'm not going to open the dialer. I don't want to reveal anybody's phone numbers. But a lot of the things that One UI did really are nice, and they make one-handed use convenient. But there's some things that don't make one-handed use convenient. So, typical scenario, you're walking around, you want to raise the brightness on your phone, you're going to reach up. Let's see, you're going to go ahead and reach up, and you're going to adjust your brightness here. Fairly easy. I could do that without shifting the device in my hand. The Galaxy S10e, if we go ahead and lower the status bar, you've got to reach all the way down here to the bottom to go ahead and do that. And if you have a larger S10, you can't even use this little gesture that I used here on the power button. You've got to reach all the way up to the top, swipe it down, and then go all the way to the bottom. I think in paper, this looks like it's more convenient, but in practice, it's just a little bit less convenient than having it up here at the top, where your finger already is if you swipe down or you swipe down on the power button. So that's just one of the little nuances in One UI that I don't think worked out exactly the way that they had hoped to. So some other things between these two devices. As we mentioned, you've got two front-firing speakers here on the Google Pixel 3, and you've got a front-firing earpiece receiver dual mode thing, and the bottom-firing speaker here on the Galaxy S10. So how do they sound? So I'm going to go ahead and open up YouTube here, and let me find one of our videos. So we'll go ahead and pull up TK here and see how they sound through a microphone. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my microphone so that way it can aim towards the phones.
Today I want to talk to you guys about the P30 Pro. I've had the phone for the last 3 days, so this is going to be kind of like an initial impressions of the P30 Pro after using it as a daily driver for 3 days. I'm going to share with you guys some of the things that I was actually kind of surprised how good they are, and also some of the things that I wasn't aware that were not even here. So let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and check out the P30 Pro. This is TK and this is XDATV. So the P30 Pro.
Alright, so that was the Google Pixel. So now we're going to go ahead and play the exact same thing on the Samsung Galaxy. And again, I'm going to put the volume up to max. I do have Dolby Atmos enabled on the Galaxy S10 as well.
Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you guys about the P30 Pro. I've had the phone for the last 3 days, so this is going to be kind of like an initial impressions of the P30 Pro after using it as a daily driver for 3 days. I'm going to share with you guys some of the things that I was actually kind of surprised how good they are, and also some of the things that I wasn't aware that were not even here. So let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and check out the P30 Pro. This is TK and this is XDATV.
So which audio you prefer on each device really comes down to how you hear it. Now for me, I kind of prefer the way the Google Pixel sounds. I think the Google Pixel sounds a little bit warmer, whereas in person, the Samsung Galaxy definitely has a bottom bias to its audio. Now that being said, the Galaxy sounds phenomenal and gets incredibly loud without distortion, something I don't think that the Google Pixel really pulls off as good as the Galaxy does. I'm gonna switch these phones over so they're on the same side of the screen. I don't think it does it as well as the Galaxy does. But I think as far as vocal reconstruction, I think that the Google Pixel sounds a little bit better. Now, I'm not going to play any music because of obvious reasons. But I think the same thing goes there as well. I think the Google Pixel does a little bit better job in reproducing audio, whereas the Samsung just gives you raw volume. One thing I also notice is the Google does vibrate considerably in your hand. The Samsung Galaxy does as well, but I think the Google Pixel vibrates a little bit more. It's something that gets really annoying, especially if you're holding the phone for a long period of time without a case. So on the topic of YouTube, we're going to go ahead and show off what these displays look like in their landscape orientations. So again, I've lowered down the volume on them so we won't have to hear the audio, but we're going to go ahead and just show you what they look like as well. So here is a 16:9 a feed from TK's video over on XDA Developers. So I've got it in 16:9 now. We're going to go ahead and just expand these two. There we go. And expand them out to the full resolution, their full scaling here. So 18:9 here, 19:9 here, with that camera cutout up there on the corner. Now, for me personally, the camera cutout on the top corner, I liked it on the View 20 where it was actually in the bottom corner and some other Samsung phones, but it's not as big of a nuisance on the top as it is on, say, like the Galaxy S10 Plus. We've got that massive pill out there on the top. But there is no denying that the Google Pixel, it is a little bit nicer in terms of aesthetics, simply due to the fact that you've got an even bezel on the top and the bottom, and you've got an even bezel on the side to the side. Whereas the Samsung Galaxy, you've got that cutout and you've got a larger chin here than you do forehead. Again, this is not something that's going to affect everybody. I think, when you get the wow factor, the Galaxy absolutely wins in pure wow factor. It really does look fantastic when you're pulling up video. We're going to go ahead and grab another video clip here just to show you, a lot of content creators are now doing videos in 18:9, and this is actually going to show you one of the things I don't like when it comes to the content on the Samsung Galaxy. So we're going to go ahead and open up Linus Tech Tips here. I believe all of their new videos are 18:9. Yes, it is. All their new videos are 18:9. And when we get to a brighter area, you can see the thing that happens here when you're in 18:9. Now on the Samsung, on the Pixel, you've got this full screen display. You can't zoom in, you can't zoom out. It just is what it is. But if I put that down here for a moment, you can kind of see what you've got going on with the Samsung. It's actually cutting into the camera by like 2/3 or so. There's no way Samsung could really have avoided this from happening, but in my opinion, that is incredibly distracting. Now, some people have told me, well, just go ahead and zoom in on the video, and you're fine. And that's really good for a lot of videos. But if you're someone who watches gaming or something that has top and bottom information, as content goes towards 18:9 more, you're going to want to have this native, so you're not cutting off content on the top and the bottom. It's only a very small fraction, but still, you could be cutting off content on the top and the bottom when you go to 19:9. And, just to get rid of that distracting element. And that's a downside to having this camera cutout in the display. Does this bother you? I don't know. It bothers me to an extent. It bothers me on a fundamental basis because I kind of am against the camera cutout. But again, you have the same problem, say on the LG V40 or on the iPhone 10 or the 10s, where you've got that notch cutting into your display. It really just comes down to personal preference on what you think looks considerably better, the camera cutout or just having, grip points and speakers here on the bottom and the top of the phone. All right, so now it's time to look at probably one of the most controversial aspects of both phones, the cameras. So I'm going to give you my quick synopsis of these two cameras here as I'm showing some camera samples that I went ahead and gathered over the past few days. First, let's go ahead and start with the Samsung Galaxy S10e. The Samsung Galaxy S10e, some of the things I really, really like about it. The Galaxy does a very good job of brightening up the entire image. It really brings out a lot of the highlights. I think the Google Pixel has a tendency to go a little bit too smooth. It's something some people have started calling moody, and I definitely agree with that. Whereas the Galaxy has really bright shots in pretty much any kind of a situation. I also really, really, really love that the S10e in particular does not have a telephoto lens for its portrait mode. I think the portrait modes on the S10e are phenomenal and gorgeous. Now, there is a little bit of distortion here. If you're looking at this photo of the bird feeder, you can actually see that the center kind of warps out just a little bit. But I think when you're looking at portrait photos, this is the kind of style you want. It really pops out from the background and comes out to you and comes alive. Whereas a lot of portrait modes, including the one that's used on the Google Pixel, which does zoom in on its subject considerably, like as if it were a telephoto, they really lose that aspect, that warping, and that focal point that I think Samsung just absolutely nails. Even in its standard mode, there's a good bit of definition between the foreground and the background. And this is a very sharp image because you are shooting at a 2.4 aperture in bright lights, which I really, really like. There's a lot to love about the Samsung Galaxy camera. I think colors are also reproduced pretty well. Now, all these shots were done with the scene optimizer turned off. I don't like the scene optimizer. I think it's a really bad tool, and they need to fix it. I hate that they hide the night mode and the document scanning. Some really cool stuff are hidden behind that. But either way, I have it off, so those are these shots. And again, I think the Galaxy just has very, very pleasing. They know what the users want to see. That being said, the Samsung Galaxy has a problem with details. If we look at this selfie here of my face, it is a very well lit. And I give Samsung all the credit in the world. Their lighting is amazing. They do a really wonderful job capturing the subject and making sure that your subject is well lit and your background is not as well lit. Or if it needs to be brightened, it is bright as well. It doesn't have these moody areas and these dark shadows like we'll see on the Google Pixel. But the moment we zoom in here, you can see that detail. It almost doesn't exist here. Now, unfortunately, I have fairly large pores, and I haven't shaved here in this shot, but you can actually see that some things were just swept away in the detail. My pores here on my cheek and my nose, they're just smoothed completely over. And this is actually a really good example. There are times where the Samsung Galaxy puts out a shot that I almost don't recognize because there is so significant smoothing going on. and it only gets worse as the lighting goes down. So this is something Samsung really needs to work on, especially with their portraits and their face shots and everything like that. I do notice the Samsung Galaxy does tint warm, as opposed to the cooler look that you get on the Google Pixel. I like the warmer look that the Samsung Galaxy does, but that loss of detail, especially when the light starts getting low, Samsung really needs to work on that, because it's borderline unusable for me and for what I look for in my photos. In contrast to that, you get videos. The Galaxy S10e, no matter how much I can slam it or discredit it, it has the very best video that you can get on any Android phone today. There is no question. And even the iPhone, it definitely has better video than you can get on the iPhone. It is amazing. HDR10, if you can enable it and you have an HDR10 TV, looks just absolutely fantastic. No other manufacturer to date has gotten HDR video properly. I'm going to go ahead and pull up an HDR video here as we're discussing this. That way you can see it on the phone and see what it looks like playing back on this display as the HDR kicks in. But it really is just absolutely beautiful to see. Samsung did a fantastic job. The audio is also really well done as well. There is a little bit more noise reduction than I would prefer to have in the video, but again, that's just a personal preference. The video here, you're not going to get anywhere better, and you're not going to find the diversity that you've got on the Samsung Galaxy. You can pretty much record at any frame rate and any scaling with any features enabled that you want, and nobody else can touch it. Samsung really holds the crown there. They just need to work on their photos. All right, so talked a lot about the Samsung Galaxy. Let's talk about the Google Pixel now. As I mentioned, the Google Pixel, I'm going to switch the albums here to on device so I don't include the ones I did of the Galaxy. The Google Pixel similarly does a really good job on these photos. If we look at this photo of the bird feeder here, it's just not as pleasing as the one was on the Samsung Galaxy. Now, is the one on the Google Pixel better? I think there's more detail that's retained in the shot. Let me go here to the non-portrait, there, the non-live view mode. I think that the shot does retain more detail on the Google Pixel, especially when we punch in. There's just a lot of detail, especially if you look up here towards the top. All the dinginess on the plastic. The Samsung really just washes all of that out. But the Google really shows that. Every small, minute detail is shown on the Google, but the shot is just less pleasing. It's less pleasing to the eye, and that's something I think Google really needs to work on. They've got getting the photo right. They've got that down, but I think they're having problems making pleasing photos, because the best photo isn't always the most pleasing one. If that makes any sense. So if we look over here at the portrait mode and comparing the two portrait modes again, I think you can obviously tell on the Google that this is a portrait mode shot. You look at the Samsung, this does not look like a portrait mode shot. These edges are perfect, and even looking through the plastic here, you can see how Google really jacked up that image. And Samsung didn't. You can even see, if you look at the top of the bird feeder, it doesn't even have the hangers. And Samsung just nailed it. Again, their live focus, second to none. I'll show a picture of my son here that I got on the Samsung, and it's just an absolutely gorgeous shot. So again, going through some of the other photos here, if we compare these two, again, the Google Pixel, it's a little bit cooler than what the Samsung has. Now, I'm down here in Florida, so it is a very warm color to my environment, and I don't think the Google Pixel picks that up really well, whereas the Samsung does a really good job of doing that. But then again, we come to details. So if I go ahead and pull up the selfie here on the two phones, and we look in at them, you can clearly see the differences there. As I was saying, I have very large pores, unfortunately, and I don't always want those captured, but if you compare these two shots, they're night and day. Samsung's color algorithms are really poor. I'm sorry, not the color algorithms. They're a noise reduction and smoothing, and there shouldn't even be noise reduction going on right here, because this is a fully bright lit environment. There should be no noise, but the Samsung is still detecting it, and the Samsung is still washing it out considerably. And this is, I'm showing it in the selfie mode. This exact same thing happens on the back. So in that aspect, if you're taking pictures of people and things like that, I don't know if I can really recommend the Galaxy at this time until they fix those issues. I'm very happy with the way that the photos look on the Google Pixel, but they are very moody. They've got a lot of color to them, but they've also got dark shadows in areas where, yes, there might have been a dark shadow in the shot, but you don't necessarily want that to come through the photo. So, when it comes to still photography on these two devices, if you want the most accurate shot, go with the Google Pixel 3. If you want a pleasing shot right out of the camera, I don't think you're going to get any better than the Samsung Galaxy. That said, the Samsung Galaxy does miss a lot. There's a lot of HDR blooming that I've noticed in some test shots that I've taken and others here at XDA that, for me, bother me, but other people don't even realize it. So I guess it really comes down to how much are you willing to nitpick it. When it comes to video, though, I'm not even going to show a test sample video on the Pixel 3 because it's really bad. That's all you should know. I think Google forgot video exists, or that people might want to take video. Their audio is terrible. It's gotten better. Their video quality is terrible. It's gotten better. Their cropping is just it's obnoxiously cropped. When you go to take a video, you have to turn video on and then take 2 steps back in order to actually get your subject in frame. Google really messed that up. So we have done a lot of talking here about these two devices, and I think that's simply because you really can't judge these two devices in 5 minutes, in 6 minutes, in 7 minutes. These are two devices that are very, very equally matched. The Samsung Galaxy needs all the credit in the world. Samsung needs all the credit for the things that they accomplished with this phone. I think that some of the trade-offs they made were not the trade-offs I would have made personally. I think the Galaxy S9 had a very nice form factor. It was not as next generation as this, but you lost iris scanning. You lost the enhanced facial recognition. You lose a reliable fingerprint sensor on the larger models, but we're not really discussing those. We're talking about this one. You've got that cutout here, and that cutout, for anybody who likes symmetry, it's going to bother you. This thing is staring you back in the face every single time you use the phone. Whether or not it's going to disappear for you, that ultimately comes up to your personal preference and what, how you use your phone and what bothers you. That being said, you're not going to find a more fully featured phone than you've got in the Samsung Galaxy. You've got a headphone jack. You've got wireless charging. You've got reverse wireless charging. You've got Samsung Pay with the MST. You've got a beautiful 1080p HDR plus. Just every bell and whistle that you could imagine is here on the Samsung Galaxy. But again, you do deal with some compromises. In comparison, the Google Pixel 3, its sticker price is about $50 more than the Samsung Galaxy, which, if you're comparing MSRP to MSRP, there's no doubt in my mind you should go with the Samsung Galaxy every single time. But that's because the Google Pixel 3 is way overpriced for what it is. That being said, you do have Google's software on here, for better or for worse. I absolutely believe that Android Q is the best version of Android that has come out. I was really timid about it and made fun of it when it first came out, but it is very stable. The features they're adding, a lot of good things coming here. Again, it just looks like it's going to be a really good operating system. Google's really done its homework, included a lot of features that people want baked into the OS. So Google has really come a long way. And you're getting your updates frequently and fast. Now, Samsung has said you're going to get fast updates on this phone, and so far for the carrier-locked models and the carrier-branded models and the international model, you do get very quick updates. I've already got, I believe I'm on the March update. It's the second week of April right now, so I'm on the March update on this particular device. I got it at the end of the month. If you're within 60 days of the OS updates, I think you're in good shape. And Samsung's definitely accomplishing that. Now, if you've got an unlocked US model, you are a little bit behind the carrier models. It's a funky way Samsung does that. It should be to the unlocked models first and then to the carriers, but whatever. But again, you do get that software experience on the Google Pixel. Will the Android Q beta come to the Samsung Galaxy S10? I highly, highly, highly doubt it will come in an official capacity, but it could. But you do have that on the Google Pixel if you're deciding to do that. Alright, so I have done a lot of rambling in this video. This video went on far, far longer than I ever expected it to. But again, I really, really wanted to compare these two devices. Which one do I think is better? Which one do I think you should buy? Which one find its place in my pocket more often? For all of its downsides, I find myself reaching for the Google Pixel 3 more than I find myself reaching for the Galaxy S10. And I can sum that up into a few different areas. One is that camera cutout. I know it doesn't bother everyone. It really, really irks me. And One UI. When dark mode is enabled, I shared some photos. I'll share a screenshot here of where the dark mode goes really crazy with notifications. That's a poor experience on a user, especially from a shipping device and a shipping ROM. The Google Pixel doesn't have that when the dark mode is enabled. I know that when I take my Google Pixel out and I take a photo, I can fix the lighting. I can't add all those details that the Samsung Galaxy S10 is removing from my photos. That being said, again, the Galaxy S10 puts out some really beautiful photos. They're just not accurate, and they don't retain details, which is very unfortunate. I also really love the hardware on the Google Pixel 3. I think it's a great size. Its weight, its thickness, its width, the way the hardware curves around these side rails, it's one of the most pleasing phones I've ever been able to hold. It's just comfortable, and it always feels like it's sitting in the right place. I'm always fudging around with the Galaxy S10e. It never quite settles right in my hand. Again, I use my phones caseless. That's the way I like to use them, and I own both of these phones. These aren't loaner devices or anything. I own both of these, but I still like to use them caseless, and it's just not as comfortable to use. So what about you guys? What do I recommend for someone who might be on the fence? I think I'd probably recommend the Samsung Galaxy S10, unless you can get the Google Pixel for like $500 or $600. I see they go on sale quite often right now. Unless you can get them for that price, I think you should go with the Galaxy S10. Or if you just want the Swiss Army knife of phones without very many downsides, the Galaxy S10 is really the phone that you should go with. They really crammed a lot of features into this phone. They did a great job. Performance is, I think it's okay to call this performance fixed on Samsung devices. You can no longer kind of joke around about that. Yeah, well, your phone's going to slow down after a few months, because it didn't happen with the Galaxy S9. You've got every feature under the sun. You've got pretty good battery life. I haven't gotten the best battery life on my S10e. I know it's a little bit better on the other devices, but you get pretty good battery life. Just charge it up towards the end of the day. You get some great colors, great carrier availability. I really think that the Samsung Galaxy S10 is the best phone that you can get for most people. I'm just not most people, and I prefer my Google Pixel 3. So that's just my opinion today. What do you guys think? Do you prefer the Samsung Galaxy S10 or the Google Pixel 3? Leave those comments down in the comment section here on the video, and also let us know if you've enjoyed this more long-form style video. If this is something you guys enjoy, I'm definitely down to doing this more often. I enjoy these where I can just talk about my experiences. I don't really like to give reviews or experiences after just a week. I've still haven't put out my review of the Galaxy S10 on XDA because I'm still finding stuff that I want to talk about. And that's kind of how it is. These devices aren't ones you can review in a week and say that's comprehensively, this is what you should buy and what you shouldn't, because experiences change over the course of a month or 2 months after the phone's launch. And I really like to do that and talk through some of the things that I like and some of the things that I dislike between the two devices. So if you've enjoyed this, be sure to leave that in the comments. Let me know. leave the video a like. And if you're new here to the channel, be sure to go ahead and subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you can get notified of every video we put out here at XDAdevelopers.com. Again, I'm Daniel Marchena, and, well, I'll see you in the next one.